Hello everybody and welcome to Alternative Interactions. I'm Gary. Well, although you find me in my local woods again, it's not an update and babble. It's I'm going to do a subject today, but rather than sat in front of the computer, I thought I'd get out in nature. Hopefully you guys can hear the birds, which is what it's all about. So please like, share and subscribe. Do appreciate it. And so today I'm going to kind of talk about language and spells. This isn't going to be a particularly in-depth one. I could have sat and done a slideshow and all sorts of, it's just not needed, but this is kind of an introduction into the language and how it's been usurped and used against us, you know. And I'm sure most of the beautiful family out there know the majority of what I'm going to say, and hopefully you'll know a few more bits and pieces that I may have missed. So you know, feel free to stick those in the comments. It's a walk and it's a babble kind of thing, but just off the top of my head. So there we go. So yeah, language. Now we're going to start off with the news. Now in the UK, I assume it's the same everywhere, but in the UK what we have is the news will give us the headlines, the story, and then they'll recap on the story. So what they actually do is they tell us 3 times. Now, when you speak in tongues, as it were, and you're dropping spells, you say things 3 times. So in effect, the news, by giving you that piece of non-news and fear, will tell you something 3 times. And that's spelling. It's putting a spell on you. So it goes into the brain. It's very clever. You know, I'm sure that goes all the way back, even beyond the KGB, you know, mind control kind of games and the MK Ultra stuff and everything else. But yeah, so 3 times is a spell. Now, many of the international Femi will not know particularly who Jimmy Savile was. Those in the UK will just shudder. But he was a pretty dark character involved in children's TV and television, DJing and all sorts of nefarious things. He had a television show, and he used to speak in riddles, as in he would always say stuff 3 times, because what he was doing is putting a spell on the audience. Very clever, very clever. And of course the audience wouldn't know this, and as a young child I used to watch it avidly, and we never questioned it. But yeah, he would say now then, but 3 times, and I'm not going to say it because it's a spell. But by saying it 3 times, he was actually saying now and then, changing time and perception almost. Yeah, you know. So we know that some dark people do this, and it's observable within the news at 3 times. So anybody who's telling you something 3 times is either nefarious working for somebody nefarious, or just plain dumb and not understanding, which is fair play. You know, it is what it is. But so yeah, so we have the 3 time bit. Now I met some lovely ladies yesterday when I was out and about on my travels, and they knew something was wrong in the world but couldn't quite put their finger on it. So I obviously went in with my size 10s and told them a few things, but they'd never come across the spelling thing, and the way words have been used and how the language is used against us, almost legalese. So I thought I'd just sort of bring it back to our mindfulness, so we're aware of what's been said. Now, at the moment it's before midday in the UK, and so we would say it's the morning, but I'm not mourning anybody. It's a grand rising, in fact. But the language we've been using to promote spells, we would say good morning. And in the morning we awake. And this, in my opinion, goes all the way back to, certainly in the UK, other countries could be different, but the 1666 Cesta V Act, and I know it's Cesta Qui Act or whatever it is, because it was done in French, but I'm English and I'm going to say it in the English way. But the 1666 Cesta V Act pronounced all women and children, men, dead at sea, so that the corporations, corpse in rations, corpses on paper, could then legally interact with the living, because the living are no longer the living, they're dead entities. And so obviously at some point we get, you know, you wake in the morning. Well, the wake is something you do after a funeral, after a death, and then you're in the morning stage, and there we have morning. Hope you're morning well. Good morning. So even in our basic language, the greeting, you know, it's like hello, isn't it? It's hell and low. Hell and low. So this is all part of the spell placed upon us via language. And I know they're very basic beginning kind of language bits, but when we start off our day with the spell, re-emphasizing the spell, then we're feeding the loosh, we're feeding that Fibonacci sequence, Metatron's cube, the Merkaba. So I'm a bit itchy. There's spiders that put their webs across the pathways, and I get hit by the spiders' webs as I'm walking along. So it's like, oh, yeah. So yeah, this spelling, in my opinion, is to keep Lelouch going on the 3D demonic third party interceptor, an interloper, which is now controlling the realm via his little hat minions. So we have a corporation, and we're the corpse of the corporation, because we're dead. Cesta V Act shows this. And so our language has been changed all the way through to then enslave us into the corporation, the third party. Another third party, corporation. Any third party is an externalization of our power, and our power has been given away. Not necessarily by us, but previous generations have been tricked into it. You know, legal fictions like Great Britain, which is not actually a real place or anywhere. We have England, or the United Kingdom, or England, Scotland and Wales. Great Britain is a legal fiction that takes everyone's rights away because it only exists on a piece of paper. It's a corporation of Great Britain for the dead. And then they can start doing to the dead whatever they want. So, when we start looking at healthcare, and the straw man, I mean, it's all connected. If you start looking at straw man, you start to see the language. You know, the one that I particularly like is a straw man, Nature of the Cage. That was the one I watched all those years ago, and very enlightening it was too. I haven't watched it for many years. I'm sure if I watched it again, I'd see different things in it. You know, fresh eyes. But fundamentally, with the straw man and the birth certificate fraud, we have the language, you know, that is in common use, but is actually there to entrap us. So the baby, before it's born, the waters break. This goes into Admiralty law. You know, we're dead at sea. Remember, we all died. So we're now under Admiralty law on the land. See, law is land, air and water. That's what it refers to. But where there is no land because we're dead at sea. So the baby, the water breaks, and it goes through the birth canal. Canal holds water, holds ships. Then the baby is born, but it's not born. The lady gives birth, and a birth is something where a ship goes, because the female is the vessel. So legally, kind of the woman is a ship. That's why all container ships are named after women, because only a female can deliver cargo. So the child is birthed, and when a ship is at the birth, it's also at the dock. Its birth is in the dock, and you give birth to the doctor. And the reason why you give birth to the dock is because at the point at which the child has been born, or the goods have been delivered, that child is still alive, because the Cesta V Act only happens and kicks in after 7 years. So if someone is presumed missing or dead and they don't turn up after 7 years, they are then officially dead. And so actually the child is born in the dry dock, to the dock, on dry land. And it's only at the age of 7, if that child has not countered the Cesta V Act, that they then become dead, a dead entity. And then obviously their their trust fund that's linked to their birth certificate, then goes to the Vatican or the bankers and is sold on the stock exchange as part of the GDP debt relief of the country. So, but the language is very interesting, isn't it? You know, we've got dock, the doctor, dry dock. And a certificate or a bond is created from the berthing of the water by the vessel. It's pretty sick, really. But this language, you'd never think about it, ever. Why would you? And it's the same with the court. You know, the courts are, oh my God, the courts. Innocent and proven until proven guilty is what we're all told at school. Could be further from the truth. When you enter a court, unless it's with 12 of your peers to be judged, then you are guilty because you've entered the room. You've entered it already. You've pleaded guilty already just by your attendance as the dead entity standing in for your legal fiction. So what do we mean by that? Well, if you walk around a church in the United Kingdom, I'm sure it's the same everywhere, what we get in churches is gravestones. And the gravestones have the name of the person that's passed, and their name will always be in capital letters. And anything officially you do, certainly the courts, the court letters, letters from the council, you know, the government will send you letters with your name. The banks will send you name in capital letters. That's not actually you. That's your straw man. That's your dead secondary. You know, the dead part of you that was pronounced dead at sea. And so what we have is the living person who doesn't realise that they're dead answering for the dead corporation of you. And you then have to pay for the legal fiction of the dead because you're telling them that you are the dead person, you're confirming it. How you get around that legally, I'm not sure. Many have tried, some succeeded, many failed. You've really got to know your stuff on that one. And as far as I'm concerned, there's no clear path in which to do it because the game is rigged by them. Okay. So there is no, they change the rules as we wake up to their deception and just put another roadblock in the way. But fundamentally, anything with capital letters in it is not you because it's a fake language. It's pig Latin. It's not even real words. It's called pig Latin. Now, if you were to go to court over a speeding fine or something and you turn up, you've already pleaded guilty because you've turned up. And certainly in the higher courts, you stand in an area which is the dock. That's exactly the same kind of dock that you were birthed in by. It's a bit of dry land. Because the only way that you can speak to a judge who sits on the dry land himself and is actually the banker, not a judge, he's a banker, is to stand in dry land. But when you're standing on dry land, because you have been tricked into having a barrister or a solicitor, a legal representative, you have no rights, because you remember you're dead and you've passed your rights on to somebody else. And so, sorry, the sun's probably going to get the screen now, but beautiful, isn't it? So you have legal counsel. Council sounds like a government to me. Anyway, the legal counsel, the judge, they're all members of something called the bar. I can't remember what the bar stands for, but I think it's British something or other. But it's a third party corporation within the third party corporation of the legal system. But what the bar actually represents is the sandbar. Because remember, everybody's dead under sea. And so that allows the lawyer or the solicitor or your legal counsel to stand on the bar to talk to the judge regarding the person who has no rights in the dry dock, who's waiting to be judged, and the judge is the banker. And what do I mean by a banker? What I mean is a judge decides how long you're going to lose in time or how much you're going to lose financially. Time is money, money is time. And they will incarcerate you and put you into a cell, a battery, a prison of energy, loose for them to feed upon again. Because these cells inside the prison are purely designed to create stress, disharmony, and negative vibrations. And again, this is what the black cube, Metatron's cube, the Merkaba, our Fibonacci sequence all feed on. You know, judges in the UK wear wigs made out of lamb wool. It's very interesting, because if a wolf was trying to trick the sheep, would the wolf not want to look like the sheep? And so the wolf would wear sheep's clothing, a wolf in sheep's clothing in fact, to deceive the sheep. So the language is kind of all there, and a lot of our sayings are Admiralty law sayings or shipping sayings as well that we have. One of my favourite is the cat's out of the bag. What do we mean by the cat's out of the bag? Well, we're talking about, in shipping terms, you know, we would refer that to the secret's out or someone's spoken. But in actual terms, the cat's out of the bag would refer to the cat and nine tails, which was generally a death sentence to the person who had the cat and nine tails. And once the cat was out of the bag, it never went back in without blood on it. The sacrifice. God, this is gloomy, isn't it? Now, money and finance, all this comes back to money and finance, always does. Because if the judge is the banker, then there must be terms within the banking and the money that is. So money is a fiction. It's the moon E. It's the shine of the moon. It's a deception. You know, the moon is a deception, and that is exactly what moon E is. It's a deception, a round deception. Certainly the currency that we have now, and it's a current sea. It's the current sea, a current of the sea. So it ebbs and flows, goes forwards and backwards, or up and down. Now, the earliest bankers, some of the most powerful earliest bankers, were the Knights Templar. And the Knights Templar, when the Pope and, what's this, 1215, I think, something similar, somewhere around that time. The Pope and the French king decided that the Templars had too much money and they wanted a slice of their pie, because the Templars were the money movers, were the bankers of olden times. And so they arrested all the Templars and tried to steal their money through torture and such like, and they didn't succeed. But what the Templars did is they then started to work under a new sigil, a new banner, and that's the skull and crossbones. So all the pirates were Templars. This is why that when you have these ports full of pirate ships, they weren't fighting each other. You know, when we look at films like Pirates of the Caribbean, although there's skullduggery between them, they can fundamentally go to the same port, or there's pirates in the port and they're all getting drunk and they may be fighting and there may be rowdiness, but fundamentally you have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ships worth of pirates sat in that port, and they're not killing each other because they're all the same creed, same clan, Knights Templars. And what the Knights Templars did is they went onto the seas and the ships, because they were used to that, and they robbed and plundered and took revenge on the French and the Roman Catholic Church, Roman Catholic Church, and made them pay dearly. But our banking terms come from this. So there's a series on TV called The Curse of Oak Island, one of my favourites. I do enjoy it. And The Curse of Oak Island, basically Oak Island was the bank, because what they would do is deposit stuff into the riverbank, the bank, and this is where we get our modern terms from: the bank, going to the bank, the branch of the river, of the bank of the river. So a bank represents the river bank. A branch is a tributary to a river, and obviously a river is currency. It's water, there's a flow. So when you go into your bank, you go up to we call them cashiers, but actually they're called tellers in banks. They should really be called still tellers. They changed the wording, obviously. But you go to the teller, and the teller will tell you where they've hidden your money in the bank, and what branch you need to go to collect your money from the riverbank. Via your liquid assets, cash flow. So you collect your cash flow via the river flow on the bank. You know, that kind of stuff. So that's you know, with banking terms, you start looking at it and start thinking about it. You know, you deposit. Well, deposit just means digging a hole in the bank and sticking your money in there. And saying The Curse of Oak Island, these guys are still looking for Templar treasure and everything else. And although it's a very slow burner, there's actually a lot of history in there that completely destroys the narrative, you know. And there is definitely Knights Templar activity and the Knights of Malta activity, but Templar activity way before Christopher Columbus discovered nothing at all. So yeah, very, very, very interesting that. But banks are a third-party corporation, again, who hold the currency. And again, you know, with modern way the world's going modern wise, it's also very clear that if you understand banking, that you don't actually own any of your money inside the bank. So this has always been the one that's certainly been a puzzler for many years for me. So you work, remember only slaves work, for a wage. You work for a wage. A wage means slave. Slaves get wages. But you work for wage, and at the end of the week or the end of that month, certainly in the UK, unless you're very lucky, your wage gets paid into the bank. You have no choice. Now, you don't own the money that gets paid into the bank. You're an unsecured creditor. And so the bank finances generally the company you work for. You work for the company pays your wages into the same bank that they have their debts with, and you don't own that money until it's physically removed from the bank. And if you go into the bank wanting too much cash, you'll be refused because you don't own your money. Sounds like slavery to me. In fact, that's got to be slavery. Feels very much like slavery to me. So there we go. But we also have something in law where we have the word skullduggery. And skullduggery or shenanigans is my polite way of not saying uckery, okay? Because it really is. Skullduggery probably comes from shipping as well, doesn't it? If we're thinking about it. But what we see and what we get from the Black's Law Dictionary is a very different language to the one that you're taught at school. Now, I know people, or I've seen videos, I say know people. I do know people who have done this, or friends of them have said this. I don't know if it's true and if they actually did do it, but I have seen some videos. And when they go to the court, they have a physical copy of Black's Law. Edition 9 is normally the one that everyone uses. And they have a Oxford Dictionary with them. And they will say to the judge, what language are we speaking today? Are we speaking the Oxford Dictionary language, or are we speaking Black's Law? And in Black's Law, there's some very interesting passages where human actually means monster. And a human or a monster has no right to own property or do anything, in fact, because It's a monster. So the Human Resource Department is the monster controlling on the legal fiction. And monsters don't have any rights. So they ask the judge if they believe, if they want to go down the Black's law, then they want to have a test done on the judge for his mental competency, because does he really believe that there's a monster standing in front of him under the Black's law dictionary definition. And generally the judges don't want to play that game, from what I've seen. I'm not advising you to do that. I just one of those interestings. But we have something called understand. You know, do you understand what I'm saying? And people say, yes, I understand. But actually, legally in Black's law, understand means something completely different. It actually means, do you stand under me? And give your rights and powers away to me. So a police officer in the United Kingdom will say, do you understand? They'll also ask for your name. At the point in which you give your name, you've actually committed a crime, because you don't own your name, remember, you're the dead fiction. Your name is owned on the certificate inside a bank or on the stock exchange, owned by somebody else. And so when you give your name to a police officer is just a policy officer for the corporation of the police force, working for the government as a third party henchman, a bit like the slave master's henchmen. That's all the police are, police policy officers, PO. And so when you say you understand, you're actually giving your rights and power away and saying to them legally that you can do whatever you want to me. And as soon as you start talking to a policeman and start engaging, that is seen as legally joinder. A contract has been established because you have not stated straight away that you do not wish to enter into a contract, and there is no joinder. And so you've contracted with a third party corporation that has no rights over you whatsoever, apart from the rights of statutory acts that have been created by man to entrap you in your legal fiction. So it's kind of interesting, isn't it? And I mean, this is very brief. There's a lot of words out there that mean a lot of different things that we do not understand. But one thing I do refuse to say is in the stand, because that's stupid. I get it. Okay? I get it. Because I get it. But I don't understand. I don't stand under my own power, and I don't understand and stand under somebody else's. I get it. And you'll never hear me saying that in the stand ever. And if you do, you know it's not me. You know I've been taken over by the Ball Collective. So yeah, the language is a very interesting, very, very long subject. And you know, I've just gone and touched a little bit on it today. There's a lot more there, really is a lot more there for us to look into, and for you guys to look into. You know, it was a very brief overview of the language and how it's been used and how it connects to the straw man, the law, and our entrapment and our enslavement within this realm. So I hope you've kind of enjoyed that very basic overview. And please, you know, comments, you know, love the comments. Thank you very much, Femi. You are wonderful, you're brilliant, and look forward to seeing what you guys got to say to me. Love, light and blessings, everybody. Look after yourselves. Bye bye.